think he's just a good guy to have in your organization. He's, he's, I guess most known, he really does go for those charges on the defensive end, but
Yeah.
I just don't think he's got quite enough accolades. I mean,
Welcome to the Friday, November 27th edition of the TV on Basketball podcast with your host, TV. We are back again with another collab. Today we are interviewing the person behind the account at _basketball on Instagram. And he also has a website, TrendBasketball.com. He is a writer. He does a lot of stuff like NBA related. If you check out his website, he does scouting. He did scouting reports before the draft. He did some off-season outlooks for basically all the teams in the NBA, and we have him on the show today to discuss his career path, just stuff regarding the NBA draft and NBA offseason. And we also had another round of hot, cold, or just right, where we talk about some of the players' probability chances of going into the Hall of Fame. It was a really fun episode. I really hope you go check him out. All of his links will be found in the description of this video. It can also be found in my link tree if you choose to check there as well. But yeah, it was a really fun episode. Thank you to Jacob for coming on, and with the NBA season coming soon, all these off-season pods are gonna be ending soon, and I'm gonna start going with the previews. So look out for that. And yeah, I really hope you do enjoy this episode. It was a really fun conversation, and yeah, remember to follow TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for updates on the podcast and for other content. If you're on YouTube, remember to leave a like and drop a subscription. That would be very much appreciated. And remember that to support on all the podcast networks, Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Podbean. All those links can be found in my bio or in my link tree. But yeah, with all that out the way, let's throw it over to my past self along with Jacob. And yeah, hope you all have a fantastic day. Take it easy, guys, and enjoy the episode. So guys, I'm here with another Friday podcast, and we're going to have a guest. This week we have a very special guest, another guest from Australia, funnily enough. He is known as at TrendBasketball on Instagram, and he also has a website, TrendBasketball.com. His name is Jacob. How's it going, my dude?
hey man, how you going? Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Yeah, we're here to talk about NBA basketball. We're here to talk about his website, what you can expect from him. Before we get started, do you have any plugging you want to do, like of your website and all that?
Yeah, I'll chuck a plug in there. So you can find my website, trendsbasketball.com. You can find my Instagram, trend_basketball, and associated, Twitter and Facebook and everything that goes along with that.
All right, perfect. Yeah, we're doing this right now on a Tuesday, I believe, Wednesday over there. If you're in Australia, correct?
Wednesday afternoon over here. Yep.
Yeah, perfect. And yeah, we're just here to talk some NBA basketball, talk about his page and all that. So yeah, let's get into it. How's the pandemic been for you over there in Australia?
Yeah, look, it's been interesting. It hasn't been as hard hit for us over here, I don't think. We went through a bit of a lockdown stage back in March, but we've been getting back to life as we know it. For the most part, we've got sold out sporting events. I think we had 55,000 people at a sporting event just a few weeks ago. The only thing you notice is some people wearing masks, social distancing, hand sanitizer in shops, but apart from that, there's not too much impact for us, which has been really, really good.
Yeah, it's definitely a different case over there than it has been in the Americas. I know that picture going around, I know exactly what that event you're talking about is because it's been trending around here in America, and it's everyone's debating oh, Australia is definitely handling it a lot better. If we did these things kind of beforehand, we could have definitely prevented it from spreading even more. But happy for you guys. You guys are definitely handling this pandemic pretty well, and everything is going pretty well over there for you guys. It definitely sounds like. So
Yeah.
yeah, when did you start to do this website thing, this page? What caused you to start all of this?
Yeah, so I mean, it all started about 6 months ago, I'd say for me. Being an avid NBA fan,
Yeah.
avid Golden State fan for many years now before before our successes.
That's what they all say.
That's what they all say. I know,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
You asked me about Monte Ellis, I can tell you about him. So
Yeah.
that's
Fair
what I
enough.
get to get out of that,
Yeah.
So, being all into that, I just looked at, how can I get into the industry? It's a very difficult industry to get into, as I'm sure you know as well.
Yeah.
There's no distinct path to get to where you want to go within basketball. So I just started writing about it and launched a website, launched an Instagram. Hopefully, the goal to reach as many people as I can, but also just to build that experience and that repertoire if I was to go into a job.
Yeah. 100%. If people like listening to this podcast are going into your page, are going onto your website, what type of content could they expect to go on if they do check your page out and stuff?
Yeah, so a lot of my contacts content is very analytical based.
Yeah.
So I've just finished a series where I've gone into each team and looked at their off season and tried to preview it a little bit.
Yeah.
Looked at their depth charts and seeing how we can fill that out. Obviously that's past now, so we can see if I was right or wrong. I think I can tell you I was not predicting a lot of the things that have happened in this last week, but
Yeah.
you'll be seeing a lot of those sort of series. So I'll going forward, I'll be doing a bit of an grading the off seasons and then looking forward to next season and seeing what I think is going to happen, what we can look for, what we can look forward to in the coming season.
Yeah, for sure. And it's definitely has been a weird off season for sure. Like the NBA season is already planning to happen in the next, like in less than a month from now, which is absolutely crazy.
About a
Especially,
week till training camp.
yeah, even just like you saying it right now, just feels absolutely surreal at this moment. And with like, with COVID still going on here in America, it definitely feels like it's going really fast, definitely. But at the same time, I think you could definitely agree with me here that we're just excited to have basketball like back on our screens as soon as possible.
Absolutely. I'm just glad I don't have to wait 3 months just to have basketball back.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Um, so like I know like you have this website and all that, and you have this page that you're starting to build. What do you plan like going forward? Like what do you like want to like go into sports media doing?
Yeah, so it's a loaded question. You
Yeah.
never really know when you're just starting out. I've got a lot of avenues I'd love to go down. If it's sports writing and sports media, then that's great. If it's coaching, I do a bit of coaching on the side. I have a juniors under 14 side that I coach in their junior club, and I also do some assistant coaching with some under 21s rep team in Brisbane in Queensland. So
Wow. Yeah.
um, just getting into that sort of stuff and getting involved is really all I'm looking into. Obviously, it's nothing that pays at the moment.
Yeah.
So a job in basketball that pays, that's the dream. You get to
Yeah.
talk about the sport that you love for money.
Yeah. Going back to like your coaching, like you say you coach like under 14-year-olds and you also are assistant coach for under 21-year-olds. Like what is like the big difference like coaching like basically high school kids compared to like college kids like at that level?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's massive. So
Yeah.
you're looking at your under 14s, and it's all about development.
Yeah.
It's all about teaching them the fundamentals of basketball. You
Yeah.
keep your hands up on defense, get back
Yeah.
on defense.
Yeah.
Make the easy passes, that sort of thing. Get your rebounds. And it's all about just developing them and getting them in love with the game of basketball. You
Yeah.
look forward to your under 21s. We actually start our season this weekend.
Yeah.
We were just at training last night, and we're going through our plays and our sets, and
Yeah.
running them down and running our press defense and our
Yeah.
inbound plays and our all that sort of stuff. And it's a lot more technical, and it's all about getting it right when the game time comes. There's no point in learning once you get to the game. You got to be ready.
Yeah, for sure. Like I remember like being in varsity like at like 13, 14 years old. It's definitely a lot different than being in varsity at the end of high school, beginning of college, just because they just tell you to like just like do these like simple plays and stuff like that. And then once you just keep progressing, they tell you to be here, then be over there, like all these different defensive schemes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely hard being a coach. Like I can like I remember like I've like the only thing I've been in like in terms of basketball is being a referee in being a player sometimes, but being
Mm.
a coach, man, it's especially going into those two different levels, definitely very impressive. And it's like, hopefully you get like somewhere in that field, maybe even sports media.
Well, yeah, I mean, we were one short last night, and I had to jump in and run some of the plays with them in the scrimmage, and I
Really?
was lost. You
Yeah,
get on your respect for that kind of things. I'm not an athlete. I'm not a basketball player by any means, but
yeah,
it's just a whole different thing going from coaching to playing. It's
yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah, for sure, 100%. So, when it comes to your like for the future of your content in terms of like the Instagram page and your in your website, like what do you plan on like doing forward and going to the season and even maybe beyond?
Yeah, so I just want to watch basketball. I just want to talk about basketball. That's all
Yeah,
you're going to see from me. You're going to see, throughout the season where I'm working, breaking down on what the plan is at the moment, going into the season. Obviously, it's all happening so quickly, but
yeah,
you're going to see some previews. You're going to see some power rankings. You're going to see some of the major stories, and then we'll look forward into the award race and the playoffs, and we're just going to talk about it. And that's really all you can do. Instagram wise, we're looking at going forward and getting some polls going and some debates and some lively discussion going on my page, and hopefully we can grow from that.
yeah, for sure. And remember, guys, all of his links will be down in my bio in the description of this video. Link to his Instagram, Twitter, and his website. You definitely should check him out. I've checked out his website. He's written some really good articles. And honestly, like some of that stuff has actually helped me pre-draft when we were talking about this beforehand. So like some of those like scouting profiles that you've done actually kind of like gave me like a better understanding of those prospects, which is really cool. So you should definitely check out his page. Speaking of the NBA draft, it happened last week. Definitely like one of those drafts where it's kind of like besides the top three, you really didn't know what was going to go on after that. And I just want to like, before we get into kind of some of the specifics, like what were just your general thoughts on this year's draft?
Yeah, I thought it was a really interesting draft. It was very hard to predict. I think I got
I feel you
maybe
there.
6 or 7 of my first round picks correct.
Yeah,
um, I think I think the top three was always going to be that the way it was.
yeah,
I think most people would have thought Anthony Edwards to Minnesota, Wiseman to Golden State, and LaMelo to Charlotte. I think
yeah,
those were the easy picks, and I think those three have the biggest potential to go forward and potentially be an all-star in the future. But you look down the list, and there was a lot of people that said, "Oh, it's a weak draft. Don't pay
yeah,
attention to this draft." And while it's not necessarily you're not going to get all-stars and Hall of Fame players out of this. There's a lot of really good, solid rotational guys that are
yeah.
going to come into this league, and they're going to provide without necessarily starring. And I'm just really excited to see what they can bring to some of those, especially low-level teams.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely understand what you mean by trying to predict this draft. I only did like a lottery mock draft on my page, and if I remember correctly, I only got one right, and that was James Wiseman going to the Warriors. I had LaMelo going number one to the Timberwolves, but obviously interchangeable with Anthony Edwards. Like he really could have gone either way there. But it felt like just like the rest of the draft, it just felt like a crapshoot at that point. Like anyone like really went anywhere. Like Denny
Exactly
Avdija,
right.
like Denny fell down in the draft like a lot further than I
I
thought he
actually got
would.
that one right. That was probably one of my few ones that I
Really?
got. I was really happy with that.
You
The
got one to the
Patrick
Wizards?
Williams at number 4.
Oh, that really confused the heck out of me. That one.
Like I don't
Yeah.
know, I don't think anyone predicted that, and as you say, it was just really surprising. Everyone was going for
Yeah.
it seemed like just a random name at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And as we just go like deeper into this draft, like I'm gonna ask you kind of a few questions. Like, who do you think is kind of would be kind of the steal of this draft? Like someone that you thought that a lot of people weren't really looking at, and you think like would be like a really good addition to the team that they were drafted to.
Yeah, well, I've got two. One's a bit biased. I think Nico Mannion at 48 to the Warriors. I
Oh
think that
yeah,
was a really, really
yeah,
good pickup.
yeah,
He was really, really good at the Hoop Summit. If you look back to that, and
yeah.
I
I
think he
remember
can
that.
provide really well off the bench, and develop into a place where he can one day fit into Steph Curry's role.
Yeah.
Obviously not at that level of shooting.
Oh yeah.
No one ever will, but he has the potential and the pieces around him to really develop. And 48, I think, was way too low for him.
Yeah.
And then my other guy that I think might be a little bit of a steal, and it's probably a little bit biased again, but RJ Hampton at 24 I believe he ended up at the Nuggets.
Yes, that
He's come
crazy
out.
4-team trade. That was a really
Of,
confusing 4-team trade, but
yeah,
yeah,
I
he's on the Nuggets. He's on the Nuggets.
was watching on the draft, and he didn't know which hat to put on. I think they threw the hat across the room,
Yeah, I
thinking it was the
remember
wrong
that.
hat. But
Yeah,
he's come out of our league over in Australia and New Zealand, and
yeah,
um, he does have his faults, but I think for whatever reason, he's dropped a fair bit
yeah.
with his draft stock over the last few months. But I think he can really provide on the Nuggets, backing up Jamal Murray and I believe Torrey Craig. I don't know if he's still there.
Oh,
He may have moved
he's on
on.
the Bucks. He's on the Bucks now.
He's moved on now.
Yeah,
Okay, but
yeah,
I think he can really back up that backcourt quite well. And again, develop into a good rotational piece. We'll see how he goes, but I think 24 might be a bit low for him.
yeah. The Denver Nuggets seem to have done this over the last few years. I mean, Michael Porter Jr. going at 14 for them was an absolute steal. Even last year, when you look at Bull dropping all the way down to the second round, like not a lot of
Yep.
people were expecting that, and they were able to pick him up, and he just re-signed like a deal, 2 years, $5 million there. So they had some nice young pieces there, and maybe RJ Hampton will definitely just fit right in with that young core that they have. We talk about like the biggest steals of the draft. Like, who do you think is like people are kind of too high on, and you think that is like kind of like you should be kind of like weary or kind of cautious with going forward into these first like these guys' careers?
Yeah, so obviously been a lot of talk about Patrick Williams
Yeah,
and why he went number 4. There was a lot of talk of him going to Detroit at 7, and I thought even that was maybe a bit high.
yeah,
He's a solid defender, and he can potentially stretch a 4 and be a good 3-and-D sort of guy. But I don't see it. He didn't start a single game in college, and while
yeah,
he did average the most minutes on his team, he didn't fit in that starting lineup. And you got to wonder if he can't be that main guy on a team in college. How can he develop in the NBA, which is just such a brutal league?
yeah.
Um, so yeah, Patrick Williams number 4. I think he's a little bit high.
Yeah, and it really did confuse me with this pick for Chicago because in my mock draft I had Tyrese Halliburton going there because
As did I.
yeah, I really did believe that him besides Zach LaVine, who has defensive deficiencies in his own right, bringing someone like Halliburton, who's a big guard who can defend, who's actually pretty good on the offensive end, not the most athletic, but I think he would have been a really nice fit with LaVine. But
And he's a
they,
culture guy as well.
yeah, he's definitely a culture guy, and from all interviews, I mean, all the people love him. He has just like that kind of that bright personality and stuff like that, and it felt like a lot of people liked him. But and as we talked about steals earlier, this guy dropped all the way to 12 to the Sacramento Kings, and
Absolutely.
and I think that's going to be a really good pickup for them, and they're really fortunate to have him at that position. But yeah, definitely agree with you there. Patrick Williams at number 4, someone who's not very proven, even at the college level, like you said, didn't come off. It was coming off the bench throughout the entire season. I always want to believe that these guys know better than we do. Maybe the Bulls see something, but as of right now, I definitely have to agree with you there. Let's transition to NBA free agency because this free agency has kind of been all over the place. Like trying to predict where people have been going has been absolutely rough, even for free agency. What do you think has been kind of the most surprising move out of like this free agency that's happened so far?
Um, Look, there's been a few really, really good pickups, I think,
Yeah,
across the league. But if I'm looking at most surprising, I'm looking at Gordon Hayward, 120 million, 4 years to the
oh
Charlotte Hornets.
yeah,
Came out of nowhere. I thought he's either, Indiana, maybe New York would be dumb enough to pick him up. But
yeah,
120 million for 4 years. He's 31. He's carrying some injuries, and
yeah,
unless he could really blossom and become that star player like he was in Utah,
yeah,
it's not going to be worth it. They also, you got to remember too, they've also stretched Nicholas Batum with that. So
yeah,
it's really, $39 million a year to
yeah.
have Gordon Hayward on your team. Is that worth it? I'm not sure. I don't
Definitely
think it
not.
is.
Yeah, definitely not. I in my last episode, I was just bashing the Hornets on that pickup because it really did feel like they were going in the right direction. They drafted LaMelo Ball, and it felt like this is kind of I wouldn't say that he's as good as Kemba Walker, but in terms of just like star aura, he definitely is like the biggest star that they've had there, probably in almost like more than a decade or something like that. So it felt like they were going in the right direction, and I just think that this Gordon Hayward signing definitely does kind of set them back in that sense. Like you're completely right. He is like a few years removed from his All-Star days in Utah, mixed in with a few injuries, not only to his leg but to his I believe it's his shoulders that happened in the bubble, if I remember correctly.
I believe so.
Yeah, I believe it's something that to do with his shoulders. And yeah, I just think it was a really very odd pickup. We go from most surprising. Like, what team do you like, or like, yeah, let's go with what team. What team do you think like just didn't do enough like during this free agency class?
Yeah,
Or the
well,
most disappointing. Let's put it that way.
I, yeah, I think of that and I look at the Detroit Pistons have done a lot without doing a lot.
Yeah,
I feel like they've made something like 20, I think it might be 23 changes to their roster.
really.
It's maybe not that much. I might be, misreading
Yeah,
that a little bit, but they've made a lot of moves. And I don't think they've gotten that much better. I really don't.
yeah.
They brought in way too many centers.
Oh my goodness.
I
Yeah,
think they paid way too much for Mason Plumlee.
yeah.
And I just don't think they've improved, and I don't think they look like a team that's going to improve going forward with this roster. It just they lost Christian Wood, which I really don't think was a good decision.
Definitely not.
Just to bring in Grant and Plumlee, it's not an improvement. It's just staying mediocre.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely at least are trying to move forward with that draft pick of Killian Hayes at number 7. They definitely want to grab him as their guard for the future, but I definitely have to agree with you there. Jeremy Grant, 3 years, 60 million is very, very interesting to be, as it looks like at this very moment, their number 2 player. Like it, it really does not feel right to me. And
Yeah,
then, like you said, all those centers, they brought in Mason Plumlee, they brought in Julio Okafor. Like, and then it just felt like you bring them in, and why couldn't you give that money to Christian Wood? Like
absolutely.
it just didn't really make sense to me, and I definitely have to agree with you there. We go from that. Let's stay a bit more positive because those last two are kind of like we're bashing a few teams. Like, what is your team to watch? I mean, there have been some like big moves that happened throughout this free agency. Like, what is like your team to watch? Like that kind of people are like holding under the radar after this free agency period.
Yeah, so I've got two teams which I'm really impressed by, and they kind of make me a little bit nervous for next season. So
Yeah,
I'll start and I'll just go to Phoenix Suns.
yeah,
I think they're looking like a really solid team. You got the starting lineup of Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Jay Crowder, and DeAndre Ayton with either Cam Johnson or Bridges in there. I think that's a really solid starting lineup.
yeah,
Chris Paul's going to bring a lot of leadership to that team, and he's going to be able to run their offense and take a bit of a load off Booker. And if Ayton can take another jump, especially defensively, they look like a really solid team that I think will definitely make the playoffs next season.
yeah, yeah.
And then my other team there is Atlanta, especially after
Atlanta.
today bringing in
Yeah,
Bogey.
yeah,
They've got now. I don't know how they're going to work with John Collins. I think he's now destined to end up elsewhere. If not during the season, then in the off season. But
yeah,
they've got a really solid starting lineup. I think bringing in Chris Dunn and Rondo were really good moves to help out Trae Young there. And Gallinari is just a really solid veteran that can shoot, and whether he comes off the bench or he starts, he's going to contribute. So they're another team that you can look to make the playoffs, I think.
oh yeah, for sure. The Atlanta Hawks definitely are probably the most busiest team throughout this NBA offseason. Bringing in Bogdanovich, obviously that whole like Milwaukee trade completely just went off the rails there, and they made him a good offer, and and I guess Kings looked at that and it's like it wasn't worth it, so they were able to like just let him go as a restricted free agent, which is you don't see that very often nowadays, especially
It's
with
really
restricted
rare.
free. It's definitely very rare because you would think that these guys are good assets, even if you don't want to have them on your team, you could just treat them as an asset. But the Kings let him walk, and the Hawks are definitely looking like that team that could maybe surprise a lot of people in the East. I want to go back to John Paul's point because I was definitely talking about this with like other people like in my group. Like you talked about him maybe being able to like move on after the season. Like, you don't think like he's like a good fit in Atlanta, or like do you think like he'd be a better fit elsewhere?
I think I think he's a good fit. I just don't think he's worth what he thinks he's worth. I think when it comes to it, when it comes to restricted free agency, he's going to be wanting a max deal.
Yeah,
And I think there's going to be teams that are, I hate to say it, but dumb enough to offer it to him.
yeah,
And teams come to mind like New York.
yeah.
They love their power forwards in New York.
Oh yeah,
So look, I don't think he's quite worth a max contract. I think you can bring in much more quality players to play for you. Like for example, Gallinari. I think he
yeah,
can provide just as much to the team.
yeah,
Without the price and without the ego. So while I think yes, he is a very quality player, and if he continues to improve at the rate he's improving, he put up 21 points per game last season. That's
yeah,
production. It's good. It's
yeah.
I don't want to knock him for that at all, but I just don't think he's right for the team moving forward if he does go forward and ask for a max contract.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like 21 points a game last year, 10 rebounds, double double performance. I mean, obviously he missed out on quite a bit of that season just because of the suspension very early on.
Yep.
So there's definitely like some like questions about character there, but yeah, maybe it is like time for them to move off of him. But would there be anything that he did, like any sort of jump that he would take this season where you would kind of like change your view on him?
Oh,
Like,
absolutely. If he
yeah,
can, if he can take that jump and especially defensively,
yeah,
and if he can continue to stretch a floor like he's been starting to do, then I think yes, he can. And I don't want to take it away from him. I think he can absolutely contribute to this team.
yeah.
Um, I just don't see it quite yet.
Okay.
But by all means, I want him to prove me wrong. I want him to get there.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, those are our free agency talks. Leave it down below if you like agree or disagree with any of the things that we talked about. We're gonna move on to our next segment, and then this is a reoccurring segment that we've done with guests on the show. I like to call it hot, cold, or just right. So, what you have to do here is like I'm gonna give you a player, and you have to tell me if you're really hot on them, just right, kind of neutral on them, or you're like cold on the idea. And today, we talked about this beforehand. We're gonna talk about Hall of Fame probability because a lot of like our childhood like basketball players, they're going to be retiring soon, and we're going to have to look at them and kind of think like, are they Hall of Fame worthy? So I have a list of players here, and I'm not sure if we're going to get through the whole list, but we're definitely going to like throw some at you, and we'll maybe debate whether you believe they should go into the Hall of Fame or not. I also have the basketball reference Hall of Fame probability, which whether you take it or not, maybe they're reliable, maybe they're not. I their system's kind of weird to me in that sense, but for the most
I
part,
believe Steph Curry has a lower percentage than Russell Westbrook or James Harden. I can't remember which one, but I
I know,
believe he's
yeah,
got a lower probability than them.
yeah. So like it's definitely kind of faulty. So that's what we're gonna discuss here. So the first player we're gonna discuss is Dwight Howard. He definitely like he had probably his best years in the mid to late 2000s. Kind of started to slow down in the early 2010s. Got a really bad reputation. Finally won the championship with the Lakers. Now he's with the 76ers after that whole debacle with him and that tweet and everything. Probably one of the funniest moments of the offseason.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Basketball Reference has him at a 99% Hall of Fame probability. So, what do you think? Hot, cold, or just right um, on Dwight Howard's probability in the Hall of Fame?
I'd say I'm just right on that.
Yeah.
I think his championship really helped him.
Yeah.
I think that's what put him over the edge. I mean, he's a three-time Defensive Player of the Year,
Yeah.
and a lot of people forget about that.
Yeah.
But he's just he did have those couple of seasons where he was questionable at best.
Yeah.
But look, I think he's rejuvenated his career and he's back to that defensive just dog on the defensive end, really.
Yeah.
And I think, you look at his resume: 8-time All-Star, 2-time block champ, 5-time rebound champ, 5-time All Defensive, 8-time All NBA. It's just, I think it's just too
It's
much.
just
He's got to get in.
yeah. Like if you asked me like 2 3 years ago, especially with like the way that his like reputation was just like going through the toilet, I could have maybe argued that he doesn't, but at this point, I mean, he rejuvenated his career, got that NBA title, and he's like, you just have to put him in there at this point. Like, there's no kind of arguing it. You've listed off all his accolades there. He's just too much of like, he's done like way too much for this league, to like not be in the Hall of Fame. So I definitely have to agree with you there. I'm just right on that probability of him going to the Hall of Fame. Next player we're going to be discussing is Kyle Lowry from my end, the Toronto Raptors. On Basketball Reference, he has an 86% Hall of Fame probability. He won an NBA championship last season. Didn't really have a great start to his season, but he definitely started to pick it up when he joined the Toronto Raptors. What do you think? Do you think are you hot, cold, or just right on his probability in the Hall of Fame?
86%, did you say?
Yeah, 86%.
I think that's a little high.
A little high.
And I love Kyle Lowry. I really do. I don't love him as much after beating our my Warriors, but
yeah,
I think he's just a good guy to have in your organization. He's, he's, I guess most known, he really does go for those charges on the defensive end, but
yeah,
I just don't think he's got quite enough accolades. I mean, he's a 6-time All-Star, one-time champion, one-time All-NBA. I just don't quite think it's enough. But we'll see. I think 86 is maybe a little bit high. I'd put in more of a 50 or 60% chance myself. But if he can keep going the way he is, maybe even bring another championship. I think it's definitely unlikely now.
yeah.
But I just think he's a really great guy to have in your organization, and he deserves to be there for sure. It's just whether or not he has enough accolades in my mind.
Yeah. 86%, even as a Raptor fan, it does feel pretty high. I still think he'll get there eventually. Maybe not as a first ballot Hall of Famer. Maybe it may take 2, maybe 3 chances for him to get into the Hall of Fame. But, so like you said, 6-time All-Star, 1-time All-NBA, being basically the second best player on a championship team behind Kawhi Leonard. Like, just like for that impact alone, just for his Raptor career, I just feel like that should be enough to get him to the Hall of Fame. I've definitely had many discussions with quite a number of people saying, "Oh, he's definitely doesn't deserve to," and I get it, but at the same time, like knowing like maybe it's definitely the bias coming out of me, but just his impact on the team, his impact just for like Canada basketball as well, I think he definitely deserves to be there. But I definitely respect that you have him like a little bit lower. I definitely see what you mean by that. Let's go on to the next player here, and someone who's honestly relatively young compared to the rest of these players on this list. We're going to be talking about Damian Lillard, and it's not like his Hall of Fame projection, but say if he did retire today, is Damian Lillard a Hall of Famer?
Oh, if he retired today,
Yeah,
that's tough. That's tough.
yeah,
I think he will get there.
yeah,
But today, I'm not quite sure. I don't think so. Especially if I've said no to Kyle Lowry, I think I've got to
yeah,
say no to Damian Lillard if he retired today. He's only a 5-time All-Star, 5-time NBA. He just doesn't have that championship.
yeah,
And he doesn't have that playoff success. Apart from that conference finals against the Warriors,
yeah,
there's not much success for him there. So at the
yeah,
moment, I'd say no. But I think he will get there in the end.
yeah. Okay, so I definitely agree with you here. That's basically what I have here on my notes. I think that he will eventually get there. I mean, by the time his career is finished, let's be honest, he's probably going to be a double-digit time All-Star, maybe close to
Absolutely.
double-digit All-NBA, maybe even like top 40 in scoring. So you have no choice but to put him there. But do you think, like, say if he did retire today, do you think like just the highlights that he's like given to the NBA, like those game winners and stuff like that, do you think that like would sway the voters into kind of like voting him in even if he did retire today?
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you bring that up. I think the recency bias, I think, does play a part in Hall of Fame talks when people have these conversations. And I mean, Basketball Reference, I don't know if you mentioned it, but he's at 72% already.
I forgot to
So,
mention it, but yeah,
um, he's got that. It'll go down in history against the Thunder. His walk-off shot there, but
yeah,
it helps him. It definitely helps him, and it could sway the voters. But for me, it doesn't quite do it.
yeah.
Just doesn't have the success for me.
Yeah, I mean, like he's just Honestly, give it like say if he does win a championship next year, I have no problem putting him into the into the Hall of Fame,
Well, I like
especially.
what Portland have done. I think he might have his best opportunity next season.
Yeah,
I definitely don't think it's his fault he hasn't had success.
yeah, for sure. I mean, Portland has like, especially early in his career, really didn't like do him any favors. But this season, man, I mean, bringing in Robert Covington, um, I believe they also brought in. Um, I know they brought back Rodney Hood. I know they brought back Carmelo. Like, is there anyone else? I swear I'm missing like one person that they.
Yeah, definitely missing someone. They brought in Derek Jones Jr.
Derek Jr. Yeah, that's another
As
good
well,
pickup. Yeah.
and Harry Giles, which will help their front court
Okay.
there. But
Yeah.
they made some good moves. They
Yeah.
really have.
Especially last year, if you like remember back to the bubble, especially the playoffs, they went like what 7 deep in the playoffs. So
Yeah,
like, yeah. So it
they just
definitely,
struggled with their depth. They just
yeah,
struggled with their depth. Nurkic and Collins, once they're injured, they didn't have anything to come off the bench at those spots,
yeah,
which I think they fixed it this offseason. So
yeah, yeah,
I'm excited for them.
yeah. Definitely excited, and oh yeah, they also brought in Ennis Cantor back after being gone for
Yes, of
one season
course.
as well. Of course it did. So yeah, this is probably Dave's best chance. So if he does win it this year, I wouldn't mind like him in like Hall of Fame consideration. But like you said,
Absolutely.
missing that championship probably isn't enough right now. Let's move on to the next person who I'm honestly surprised that this guy has like a lower chance of getting to the Hall of Fame than Damian Lillard. Let's talk about Kyrie Irving. He won a championship, one of the most iconic shots in NBA history. I'm hitting it over Steph Curry in Game 7 of the 2016 NBA Finals. Whether you like him or not now, I mean, there's a lot of like people on like either side of the spectrum with Kyrie Irving at his point in his career. But what do you think? Do you think like of his probability chances of at him being 64%? I have here. Are you hot,
Yeah.
cold, or just right?
It's probably a little bit biased. I'd say just right.
Yeah,
I'm a bit torn on him. He's obviously technically an Australian,
yeah, hell
born in
yeah.
Melbourne. I've also
Wait,
got
wait, quick question. Is he like if like with his eligibility, is he able to play for the Australian national team if he like chooses to?
uh I'm not
I
sure. I'm
I'm not sure
actually not
either.
100% sure. I don't think
Yeah,
he
I don't think he is.
I think
Yeah,
if he chose to originally, he might have been able to, but I think he went with
yeah,
America, so he's
yeah,
stuck
yeah,
with
for
them.
sure.
But
Yeah,
I've got family that goes for Boston, so there's a bit of bad blood there.
yeah,
And I'm personally not a fan of some of the decisions he's made in
mm,
recent years. But you can't deny the fact that he's an incredible basketball player.
yeah,
I think he's got one of the best handles in the NBA, and it's just really enjoyable to watch him when he's at his best.
yeah,
Championship, the shot over Steph Curry really helps him. 6-time All Star, 2-time All NBA, Rookie of the Year. You know,
yeah,
he's even got an All Star MVP. So,
yeah,
which I don't know if they even consider those, but
yeah,
it's good to have. So I think
yeah. He also got gold medals
60.
with
Did you
the
say
U.S. as well.
64?
Yeah,
Yeah,
64%
did you
chance.
say 64? I think
Yeah,
that's probably fair right now. We'll see what he does in Brooklyn, especially if they get James Harden. He could be
yeah,
up for another championship. If he does, I think he's a lock.
yeah. For sure. I think like you talked about recency bias with Damian Lillard. If he did retire today, I think a lot of like, especially like those voters would probably look at it as like he really just like asked forced his way out of two situations, both in Cleveland and in Boston,
Yeah.
got himself to Brooklyn, and I mean obviously he hasn't even like played I think like 20 games with them yet
Yeah.
or something like that.
He
So
has struggled with injury. He
yeah,
struggles to be a leader on the court,
yeah,
I think, which is one of his biggest weaknesses. But at the
yeah,
same time, people do forget what he's done.
yeah, for sure.
He has done a lot. It's just recently he's not been up to scratch, but
Yeah.
you can't let that go against what he has done.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with you though. He's just right. I think like those stuff have to come into play, like the recent stuff. But we can't forget that he is like at his peak, a top two NBA point guard in this league. He is just that good of of a player,
Absolutely.
and hopefully we get to see it again this year in Brooklyn. So yeah, 64% Kyrie Irving, um, with the Hall of Fame probability. Let's do a few more here. Another player who has been like part of a dynasty in this decade. Honestly, like just because of his accolades, I thought he would have a higher percentage chance here. Let's talk about Draymond Green. And if he retired today, he's at a 30% Hall of Fame probability,
Ooh.
which is kind of honestly, I don't know about you, it's kind of surprising to me, especially with like the
Yeah.
two championships, winning Defensive Player of the Year. But what do you think?
Yep.
Is it are you cold, just right, or hot on
Um,
Draymond Green?
I'm I'm cold on the 30%. I think I'm saying that right. I think it's a higher.
Yeah,
Um,
so you're hot. So you think it should be like
I'm hot. Yeah,
higher
okay,
than
yeah, I think it should be higher.
yeah,
I by no means think he's a lock. I
yeah,
don't want to. I don't want to be. I am a Warriors fan, so I don't want to be
yeah,
biased here. But I think he's such a strong-willed player. You know, he hasn't got the size that a lot of power forwards have,
yeah.
but he just gets it done.
Mhm.
He gets it done defensively, and I think back to all the jokes about triple singles and all
Yeah,
that sort of stuff. And obviously, he's come off a pretty poor season. I think that was based a
yeah,
lot on him just sort of not putting any effort in. But
yeah,
when
for
he
sure.
does, he is just an incredible defensive player. He's incredible to watch. As you said, three-time champ, defensive player of the year. That defensive player of the year award really helps him.
Yeah,
Um, Three-time champ, three-time All-Star, five-time All-Defensive. I think when it all comes to the end, I think he may get in.
yeah,
It'll be tough, but I think he may get in along with his teammates.
yeah, for sure. I mean, if we just look at Steph and Clay, I mean, Steph is definitely a lock. We can lock that in.
Absolutely.
Steph, like even if he retires today, even if you think of Clay Thompson and just like the way like he like has affected the league in his shooting and stuff like that, holding all those records for 3-point shooting, I even think that he's more of a lock than Draymond Green. But
Yep.
yeah, in my opinion, like I'm like definitely high on this. I think it should be higher than 30%. Um, I think it honestly should be closer to like 80-90% just because of like he just doesn't get talked about as much in terms of this Golden State Warriors team. They always are going to look at Steph and Clay because they do all the highlight plays, but Draymond Green definitely just held that whole dynasty together. He was he's literally one of like probably the only guy in the league that can make that death ball lineup of the Warriors work. And honestly, like
Absolutely.
yeah, so like I honestly think that even at this point, like if he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, I would not have like argued with you here. And I think like yeah, Draymond Green definitely deserves like I said, this basketball reference percentage thing is kind of iffy at times. So seeing 30%
Yeah.
beside Draymond Green's name is kind
Well,
of
if
yeah,
if if we don't have Draymond Green, I don't think we win three championships.
yeah,
I
for
think he was that impactful. I don't think we necessarily don't win any championships, but he wins. He helps us win those championships. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And I definitely have to agree with you there. For all the people that hate Draymond Green, I'm one of those guys who absolutely love him. I love his energy on the court and stuff like that. And he was definitely one of those guys on the Warriors that like really gave them a lot of character, really
Hmm.
gave them their identity. So yeah, I'm definitely
Well,
high
that's the
on
thing. People
yeah,
question his character,
yeah.
and people criticize him for the way he
It's
speaks to his
passion, man.
teammates, and
Yeah, it's passion.
it's passion. Well, I don't know if you would have seen it, but he had a Bob Myers was talking to James Wiseman after he got
Oh,
drafted. He
really?
said, "Look, if Draymond's yelling at you, don't take
Yeah,
it personally. He's
yeah,
trying to help you out. He's trying to
yeah.
teach you." So
Oh,
he does. He
interesting.
wants what's best for his teammates, even if it doesn't come across the best way sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Draymond Green should definitely be higher on like in terms of like Hall of Fame probability. Let's go with three more here. Probably this one's gonna probably spark a lot more debate. Like the other ones were kind of like closer to Hall of Fame logs. These ones probably has a bit more debate. Let's go. Let's start here. Let's start with Jimmy Butler, and
Mm,
I'm very surprised that he's higher than Draymond Green. 43% on Basketball Reference. His Hall of Fame
okay.
probability is definitely like first time making the finals this year. Had two phenomenal performances in those NBA finals. Multiple time All Star, multiple time All NBA. Are you hot, cold, or just right on his probability chances?
Um, what did you say there again? 40,
Oh, 43%.
43. I think that's about fair at this stage.
Yeah,
If not, I'd probably go a bit closer to 50.
yeah,
I think what's hurt, and I wasn't a Jimmy Butler fan until this year. I really wasn't.
yeah. A
But
lot
I
of
think
people
what's hurt
were.
him is
Yeah,
his lack of success. I mean, he spent a lot of time in Chicago, which that's tough.
yeah,
And Minnesota, we all know what happened there. Philly, you know, didn't work.
yeah,
And then he found his way onto this Miami team, which I think is the perfect spot for him.
yeah,
And the way he likes to play. I really grew a whole new realm of respect for him.
hmm
And he's a good teammate. It turns out he's a
yeah,
really good defensive player, and he just gets it done. He's not a stats guy. He just gets it done. He wins. And I think if he just like Damian Lillard in a sense, if he can get a championship and a few more accolades, I think he can get in quite easily.
Yeah.
But at this stage, I think he's more of a 50%.
Yeah. Definitely. Like we've talked about it throughout this podcast, recency bias. If he retired today, I mean, people are gonna have those long lasting, like just that lasting memory of like just
Absolutely.
those two like absolutely bonkers games that he had in the finals. And I mean, I was a fan of Jimmy Butler. Like I just thought like kind of like the same thing with Draymond Green. I kind of like related to Jimmy Butler in the sense where I think people mistake his like his attitude for just passion. They just want to win and they just want to do whatever it takes to win. And you definitely put it right there. I mean, with the Chicago Bulls, like they just didn't mesh like the type of like vision that they had like for like a championship and stuff. And finally, when he gets to this Miami team, it just finally just all works out. Finally gets his chance. Although comes up short, I think this is like probably the best chance he's ever going to get getting a title with this group of guys. And I think like yeah, at this moment, 50% sounds just about right. I think like yeah, just higher than 43% is probably good, but he just needs that championship, maybe a few more All NBAs and All Stars, and he'll definitely be a lock for the Hall of Fame. But as of right now, yeah, 50% seems just about right. Two more people here. This one's going to be kind of a little bit more interesting. Let's talk about Derrick Rose. He he's at right now 12% chance according to Basketball Reference for making the Hall of Fame. Obviously, a one-time MVP. Um, Obviously, those injuries like really did hurt him, and kind of a rough few years. But he finally found his like role as a sixth man in the NBA. Like, what do you think? Like, do you think that somehow, some way, he'll get into the Hall of Fame, or do you just think like just not enough years of greatness?
Yeah, I think you hit that description perfectly there. I think he really found his role as a six man.
Yeah,
I had him quite highly on my awards board for six man of the year.
yeah,
I don't necessarily think he was going to win it, but I had him in my top three.
yeah,
He's one of those guys that you just like. Him and Klay Thompson, I think, are the two people in the league that everyone just likes.
yeah, yeah,
He's a great teammate. He's just a good guy, and he's he's an incredible player. People forget, he was the youngest MVP
yeah.
at that time, and I think he still is.
Yes, he is.
And three-time All-Star, all-time All-NBA, All-Rookie, Rookie of the Year. And if he can, I think that percentage is really low for him. I
Yeah,
think if he can, and I certainly think he can, if he can win a Six Man of the Year award,
yeah,
and really solidify himself as that sixth man. I mean, he's put up 18 points per game the last two seasons. It's
yeah,
nothing to, it's nothing to sneeze at.
yeah.
So I really think he's a chance. If for nothing else than just his personality, his what he brings to your team in the
Yeah.
locker room. I think he's, if he can keep going for another few seasons, he's younger than Steph Curry, so he's
I
got
know.
time.
Yeah, yeah. He definitely does. Yeah.
So
So
that's harsh. I'd put him at more of a 40% chance right now.
yeah,
And if he can continue it, I can see that skyrocketing.
yeah. I really hope he does get out of Detroit, though. I really wish he can like find his way
Absolutely.
on like some sort of contender, just so like
Philadelphia, I think, would be good for him.
yeah, yeah, just something like that, just to give him a chance at that title. Because if he does have that title, I could definitely put him higher, like maybe like a 70, maybe even 80%.
Absolutely.
And like just looking at like just like the Hall of Famers that are in like the Hall of Fame right now, like he would, if he didn't make the Hall of Fame, he would be the only MVP that wouldn't be. I mean, it just feels weird to be completely honest
Yep.
if he wasn't there. And he definitely has
It's
the
hard to
grab.
say this guy was the best player ever in the league. So not ever,
Yeah,
sorry, this was the
yeah,
best player in the league this year, and he's not a Hall of Fame.
yeah. It definitely just feels like super weird in that aspect. And I just think that he's just like you said, a six man of the year award. Honestly, would skyrocket his chances just so like it honestly just proves that he was able to come back. I mean, those like ACL injuries, those Achilles injuries were absolutely horrible to watch. Like I was like one of the biggest D Rose fans when I was younger in like elementary school. I was like I had his shoes, I had all his gear, and it absolutely broke my heart to see him get injured in the ways that he did. And
Absolutely.
and at this point in his career, I mean, like you're absolutely right. Him and Klay Thompson, you're just those two guys. Maybe even throw Boban Marjanovic at this point in there as well.
Yep,
Like just players,
100%.
like you just can't hate them. You just absolutely just can't hate them. They're just like they've just got like just like their person, whether it's their personality or whether it's D Rose's story, you just have to like respect what they've done. And yeah, 12% is kind of harsh. At this point, I would maybe put him at like a 30-40% as well. But he just needs a few more years of just like good play at that 6-man role. And hopefully throughout that road, he also gets a championship. And we could finally say that he's actually like a Hall of Fame, like a candidate for sure. So yeah, that is Derrick Rose at 12%. We have one more person here. And again, another one of your Golden State guys, Andre Iguodala, who's right now at a 6%, um, um,
Wow.
6% chance at a Hall of Fame. Um, Definitely, like he was really good in his early days in Philadelphia. He was an All Star there. He goes to Golden State. Completely changes his role. I mean, this guy was even before Golden State when he was in Denver. He was still kind of like a second or third option. Goes to Golden
Yeah.
State, completely changes his play style to like kind of fit the team. Again, one of those players that just makes the death lineup work for the Golden State Warriors. What do you think? 6%? I think I have a feeling you're gonna say it's way too low, but do you think like Andre Iguodala is a Hall of Fame player?
Look, I don't think it's way too low. I do think it's too low.
Yeah,
I certainly don't think he's a lock, but
yeah,
you look at Andre Iguodala, I really do enjoy watching him play. And whenever I do a 2K sim, I always try and get him on my team because
yeah,
he's just a player you want on your team, So,
yeah,
you look at his stats, he's not really a stats guy since he's come to Golden State. He's now a career 12 point per game, 4 assists, 5 rebounds, but that's not who he is. He's a
yeah,
defensive guy. Some people forget he won a Finals MVP for stopping LeBron.
yeah.
You don't stop LeBron,
You know,
but
you
he did.
contain him.
So
You contain him.
I think 6% way too low. He's got the championships. He's got an All-Star appearance. He's got the defensive accolades. And the Finals MVP, I think, might end up being what pushes him over the line.
Yeah,
But for now, I think I'd put him at maybe a 20%, 30%.
yeah. And I think like I definitely have to agree with you there. I think like he actually like should be like in consideration for Hall of Fame, and you can't like look at Andre Iguodala as your typical Hall of Fame candidate. You have to look at him as kind of like what has he done like in like his most successive role, and that is being a role player. I mean, he is a superstar in that role that he's done. I mean, like whether he was coming off the bench or even like just like as that fifth starter, like he just played it exceptionally well, and just not a lot of people talk about him like in that role just because like I said before, Steph and Clay, even like Draymond get a lot more of the headlines, but Andre Iguodala is there, just holds the team together, and was a massive part of those like NBA Finals, NBA championship years. Like, and that Finals MVP definitely, honestly, what if that's what it really came down to, that would probably push him over the top in terms of Hall of Fame candidacy. I mean, although LeBron still averaged 34 points or something like that in those finals, Andre Iguodala contained him. I mean, LeBron easily could have went for over 42, but Andre Iguodala literally like did his best on him like against the one man show. And yeah, I think although he may or may not make the Hall of Fame, I still think it's too low. 6% is way
Six
too low.
percent is too low.
It's
Yeah.
just way too low for Iguodala to be in the Hall of Fame. But yeah, those are the players we discussed. Leave your thoughts down below, whether you agree or disagree with our thoughts. Um, and yeah, this is a really good podcast. Thanks for coming on, Jacob. Do you have anything like to say like before we sign off, like
Yeah,
about
no,
your?
thanks so much for having me on. It's really great to talk about. I really enjoyed talking about that Hall of Fame stuff with you.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, just encourage everyone to check me out. Leave your thoughts with all of my work. I'm always happy to debate. I'm always happy to, read your comments and read your messages and talk about stuff with you. So yeah, check me out and let me know what you think.
yeah, for sure. I'm gonna have all of his links down in the description of this video if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're any of the podcast networks or you've seen just the previews on my Instagram, I'll have his links in my link tree as well. So definitely go check him out. Really cool guy. Just check out he also has really good articles on his account, so definitely go check that out. And that is the end of today's episode. Thank you guys for watching or listening. Remember to follow at TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all updates on the podcast and for other content. Also, remember to support all the podcast networks. Remember to support the YouTube. Subscribe and drop a like. That'd be very much appreciated. Once again, thank you for Jacob for coming on and having this conversation with us. Like, it was a really, really fun conversation. Remember to check him out, TrendBasketball.com, to see all of his articles. And also check out his Instagram page, Trend_basketball. I will be back again on Monday with another episode regarding news around the NBA and another week of episodes to check out on YouTube and on the podcast networks as well. So thank you guys for all your support. We have just eclipsed 1,800 downloads as well. I really do appreciate all you guys out here. And yeah, next week is going to be another jam-packed week. So hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Take it easy, guys. Peace.